And we are live. Welcome back to the weekly Roundup, September 22nd. Things are starting to pick up. That's what I'm seeing in some of the studios now. We talked last week a little bit about September's like a weird time of year where I don't know. I think I'm going to call it and say September's the new August. Like July, August seem to be kind of okay. But like September, I mean, some of them are, no, I mean, like some of them are bumping in places. September though, first 2 weeks of September, shit, like everyone, like every single studio I've talked to, they're like, what is happening? So I think it's just an exhale moment. So stay the course. Now we're starting to see it pick up. We've got a few studios where like just in the last week, a studio I've been working with, they have 3 times the number of first visits in the last week as they did in the first 2 weeks of the month. So if that's you, I just wanted to call it out. Keep going, keep cooking on this stuff. Yesterday, I did a podcast with Mr. Corey Sterling from Conscious Counsel on my podcast that is still about to launch. You guys get to see the sort of pre-launch of it. We record it live, that's why, and I put it in the network, so you can go see the YouTube recording of it. But it's called Amplify Your Impact, and it's really more about like the entrepreneur behind the scenes for, you know, a lot of our industry. That aside, one of the subjects that came up, I thought was appropriately timed because it relates to a post that Bridget had made here in the YC. And I'll just summarize the post. Bridget basically asks, you know, I've had this issue with some staff. Am I crazy? Was the question that came up. And I thought it was such a perfect question because when you run a yoga studio and you're managing a team, there will come a time where that question comes to your mind in a lot of cases, like, shit, am I crazy? Like, what's going on here? So no, you're not. I mean, you might be, but usually with your staff, no, you're not crazy, demanding professionalism and stuff. And the reason this relates to the podcast is when I asked Corey about, you know, what has been the biggest overall hurdle building his business as a lawyer, he said, being a manager, managing the other people. And we sort of jumped into that in depth a little bit more. And I just thought, man, is that the truth? If I was to think of the top 3 things that are, you know, very consistently, most definitely going to be a hiccup for a yoga studio owner, and I was to tell someone opening a yoga studio, this is something you need to be ready for, managing your team is in that top 3, if not number 1, always, hands down, no question. It's just a unique, it's a difficult thing in any business, I think, but I think in the yoga world, there's the additional quirkiness of the relationships that we have from the yoga perspective. It's not the same as other industries. So it's something that we have to keep talking about. Yes, there's practical techniques and recommendations that we can make. We'll make some right now, so stick with us here. But I think it's just an important thing to call out that like this is a common occurrence. I'm not 100% sure why, but it really just is the case that managing your team can be tumultuous, to say the least. Terry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think part of it too is I was certainly the case in my studio and a lot of studios that we work with is that typically it's like you become a yoga teacher because you really are passionate about what you do. You make friends with your other yoga teachers, maybe at a studio, whatever, and then you decide to open a studio. And then a lot of times you're hiring your friends. And so you already have this pre-existing peer-to-peer, friend-to-friend relationship. And then you're transitioning it now to employee-employer, whether they're actual W-2 or 1099, it's like you're the boss. And so now all of a sudden it goes from your, again, peer-to-peer, and now, again, traditional hierarchy, you know, the buck stops here. And I experienced this firsthand with a very good friend of mine. And we had some tumultuous times early on in my early on days of owning a studio. I definitely could have handled it better for sure. You learn, that's part of your journey is, and at the end of the day, at the time, it was really hard for me, but I have to give her, and I told her this later, is that she came to me and she quit. She quit and she said, I would rather keep you as my friend than have you as my boss. And that was like a punch in the gut. And it did cause a breach in our friendship for a while. I'll admit that. However, we worked through it. But then I came to tell her one time, I really admired her for doing that. That took a lot of guts and a lot of courage.
Yeah.
So I think, to me, I think that's definitely part of it. And I hear that all the time. Well, we were friends and now they're all my friends and we used to hang out and this and that. And now all of a sudden I'm telling them what to do. So I think that's part of this dynamic, is how do you transcend that relationship and keep those professional versus personal bounds? And I'm not going to say I have an answer for that. However, I will say, maybe you're going to say, we'll talk about Corey. The first step is making sure you have a good agreement with your teachers so that all the expectations.
Step number one, hire Corey and get your paperwork in order.
If I had done that from the beginning, that would have been a huge difference.
Yeah, totally unsolicited plug for Corey altogether. Like, just
do it.
Corey or whatever. Don't write it with AI. Do not download a fucking template. If you steal it from another studio, your friend's business, no. Like, get a lawyer on your side with proper whatever to get your paperwork together. It just is going to help you. Like, go listen to the podcast and there's some more ranting about that. But we just see it so many times. Vicky, real quick, the thing that came up in a coaching call for me recently was the team had, there was a woman external. She didn't normally teach at the studio all the time. She just came in and did sound bath and sound healing stuff. So they did one event and it was really, really big and sold out and she was super excited. So they planned a second event. And then the day of the event, different time of year, different marketing effort. Well, not even really, same marketing effort, whatever. Long story short, only 6 people had signed up. Now, maybe some more would have shown up that evening or whatever. But the woman is just like, I'm not coming. She's like, I have a minimum of 10. I have to make this much money. It's not what, like, I can't believe. And so she not only just canceled last minute, which then, like, this is a specialty class that requires the equipment of the bowls and stuff too. So it's not like the owner can step in and teach it. So it totally screwed them. And then she went on to, like, basically attack the studio for a little minute, that they didn't do a good enough job promoting her and the thing, and then asked for the email list of the people who were at the first one. And I was like, holy shit. Like, in any other industry, people's heads would roll. Like, there's just no, but this, I'm like, you guys, like, you didn't do anything wrong. This is a totally normal thing. I hear these stories all the time. But the culminating point that I really tried to give to the studio owner was just this idea that you, not only are you not their friend, it's not that you can't be friendly, that's fine, but beyond that, you're not even their peer in most cases. If you run the yoga studio and you hold the weight of all that and the million hats and you're doing all the stuff, someone who teaches a yoga class for you, it's not to diminish them as a human, but you have to realize you are not peers. You are not on the same level. There is a hierarchy and you have to be higher. You should be. Like, that's just the nature of the business. And maybe people don't like the sounds of this. And I think especially because I know owners who started their studios and they're like, really had the vision, Terry, that you're talking about. I just want to hang out and do some yoga and be with my friends, and I'm just going to pay them really well and it'll be nice. But then, like, 3 years in and they haven't paid themselves anything and their enthusiasm weighing or whatever else, then, like, shit gets real super fast. So what I'm saying might not sound in line with what a lot of the yoga industry wants to perpetuate as a narrative, but I'm telling you, from a proper functioning standpoint, you have to ascend to be the leader. People need to be led. And then there's more steps in doing that and putting, you know, policies and parameters and XYZ in place and having clarity of the relationship. But yeah, I think you're not crazy. You have to be the leader. You are not their peer. And if anyone tries to challenge that, then you should seriously question their participation in your business, not from an ego standpoint, from a health of your business standpoint. Go ahead, Vicky.
Yeah, there's definitely a paradigm shift that has to happen in most studio owners, to go from that utopian hippie dream to a place where you're an actual business leader. And along that path, there's sometimes these hard decisions when there's someone in the team that you just can't work with them and they're pulling the team down. If you have someone that's problematic, it's going to happen. Like it's going to affect everyone else, and you're going to have to get rid of them. Those decisions are so hard because, like Terry said, you often started out as like, these were your friends and these are people you know and they're contacts that you've been doing yoga with for years, even if you're not close friends. So the thing is, though, if you've got to find that power, and if you don't find that power and strength that it requires to make these hard decisions, then it becomes this vicious cycle that's going to drain you even more.
Yeah,
because it's extremely draining to have a situation where there's someone who's constantly kind of poking and pulling in the wrong direction and not doing this, not doing that, and you're having to chase them. And yeah, it's a total sort of energy suck and vicious cycle that you get pulled into, and then it gets even harder and the situation becomes even worse. So you have to find that, and it's tough. Yeah.
Well, and to add to that, Vicky, I would say as well, like the opportunity cost of that, the energetic cost of that is so hard to calculate. But once you get out of those situations and you look back with clarity, you're like, holy shit, like it really can be detrimental to the business. And that's a complicated equation to look at logically. So you kind of just have to trust your senses on this, because this is not to say that the person that you might have difficulty with in the team dynamic and your internal culture, et cetera, isn't good at their job. They might be a really great yoga teacher. In fact, I've seen in many cases, it's the person that's like the busiest class, great yoga teacher, whatever person, but they just totally undermine everything else in the business. So it's terrifying to get rid of someone like that from your team, because it looks on paper like they perform, but it's like what happens is only they perform. Everything else is hindered in its performance, and the collective effort of things is sometimes what it is.
It's easy
It doesn't always mean that the solution's firing. Yeah,
it's easy to get sort of attached to these rock star teachers and to think that, I'm not like the rest of my team is not good enough without them. It's a little bit of a confidence thing, but usually I think, you guys would probably agree that pretty much all of the cases when we get rid of that rock star teacher, if they are also a problem, your team will become better and you don't lose clients. We think we're going to lose
100%.
clients, but we don't.
I just want to say, to follow up, just to finish out my story, is when you said something, Vicky, it reminded me, is like, thankfully she quit, because I had come to the decision of my friend that I was going to have to let her go because it was becoming an untenable situation. And then, it ended up, after we kind of got through this, she was a good teacher and she was, I love her. And then she was just on my sub. It would up, all right, she did come back later and she would occasionally sub a class, which was great. And people loved to see her, and she would come practice at my studio. So it wasn't like, it didn't have to be this huge thing. Yes, it was, in the moment it was bad, but then it got better. So there is the moral of that story. And the other thing too that is interesting is, sometimes you mentioned the problem teacher. I just want to kind of circle back to that, is that oftentimes, and I run into this particularly with a lot of my OG Bikram studios, since there's not this plethora of Bikram teachers coming out every 6 months, you've got a couple hundred Bikram teachers out there in the market. So always had plentiful Bikram teachers. Now that is essentially dried up, is that some of the older OG teachers in some studios, it's like they're kind of holding the owner hostage, because they're oftentimes very unwilling to change and sticking to this, causing problems and not really part of the team. And oftentimes they're really good teachers. Like you said, the rock star, which I actually don't really like that term. I don't know, but everybody knows what we mean by that. So I just want to say, if you didn't get a chance to watch the webinar this week that happened on Tuesday, there is a solution to have a pipeline for your own teachers if you are not wanting to do your own teacher training from scratch, right? So definitely check out the webinar we did on Tuesday. It's in the resources. And if you go and look at the presentation at the very bottom, or if you got the email, there is a discovery called You Can Book with Nora Roberts, who put this together, and find out about it. Because I think for a lot of people, the fear is with some of these teachers is, oh my gosh, if I get rid of them, who's going to teach the class? So if you don't have a regular pipeline of teachers, check it out. It's a great deal. She has a special going on right now for us here in the YC. So definitely check that out for sure.
Yeah, it's a white label teacher training. So like you run your own teacher training, but everything's all formulated already. It's good. It's why she's a preferred partner in the YC. And also, just to pump up Nora a little bit, like she has degrees in education, in adult education.
Yeah.
And her husband and son are professional coaches. So like she understands the formulation of how to help someone learn and develop the skills around it as well.
Yeah,
I mean, having a pipeline of teachers coming in, Terry, I agree, is like for a lot of markets, a lot of individual studios or areas is something that's becoming more and more and more a necessity, regardless of the like make money off teacher training part of it. I think there's one other thing that in Bridget's post, and I really appreciate, Bridget, when you watch this, how your candor, like your ability to just really like put out, this is the realism of what's happening. Because even in our group, which is private and curated, and we're policing any shenanigans and we boot people every week if they're not supposed to be in here and whatever else, it's still, people hold back a little bit. So it's nice to actually just have the real conversation. One of the things that Bridget said, and that I've seen and experienced a few times, is it's this description of a feeling. Like, I'm reluctant to go into my own studio because I'm like scared of this other person in the business or the potential interaction of that. Like, no. hard no. To if its owner says that to me, it's like, this is an emergency state and you need to address it immediately, in my opinion. And it usually starts, as we've had this conversation for years and years in the YC, it usually starts with, you've just got to have that like sit down meeting with them. But the key to this, here's the really practical step. First off, like just to double down on, if you feel unsafe, uncomfortable, unexcited to go into your own yoga studio because of someone else in it, like get them the fuck out of there. Like or do something. Like, it's an emergency. That's just not you. Here's the thing. It's not about just you or being selfish. It's like your responsibility is the community and the larger business and everything else. You have to be wholehearted into it. You can't burn yourself out. Like it would be irresponsible for you not to change the situation if that's how you're feeling. So everything else aside, you have to do it. Practical application. Have the sit down meeting with them. My suggestion is, don't talk about any specific anything. I think that's the fastest. Every time I see an owner do that, that's immediately opens a can of worms. People's egos in the yoga world are so enormous, like just yoga teacher heads are ballooned all over the place when it comes to this sort of stuff. It seems to be. They can't get outside of themselves. If you come in and say, you did this or you did that, and I don't want this, you're just going to end up in a fight. And that doesn't make sense. I would make it about the larger studio vision and mission and just express how you're feeling. It's seeming to like not how you're feeling, but your sense of how the situation feels. You know, Terry, it's really important. It's my job to have the difficult conversations and to whatever. And this is the vision of the studio and this is the mission that we're on. But I'm really feeling like you're not happy in this situation. And it seems that, you know, there's a tension or whatever here. And I want to call it out and see what's going on and address this head on right away. And then let them talk. And it doesn't matter if they get upset or not, but it'll get something moving. They often will try to pull you into the weeds. Well, you said this, but this happened, or just if you ever did that, or you don't give me a raise for this, or Werner paid that. Stay out of all of that. Stick to your guns on like, we have to have a positive environment. People need to get along and feel safe and whatever here. It's for the students. And what we can't have is anyone on the team who like is not fitting the culture of the team, or who is undermining, the progress, or making it difficult for us to fulfill what we're doing. And you either come to a positive conclusion and can move forward, or it becomes obvious that you can't. And then you just say like, no hard feelings. I think you're great. You're a great teacher. I'm happy to, write a recommendation for you if you need it or whatever. But, I just don't think that this is a good fit. Peace. That's it. And it sounds, easier said than done, but just making sure that you address it right away. Here's the thing that I've seen, and I'm sure Terry and Vicky, you can attest to this as well with your clients. If you address these things quickly and head on like this, then you don't end up with problems in the future. It's like, it calibrates the whole team, even if you're not going to be like, I talked to Terry and told her blah, 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 like that. It's just, people know what goes on. So if you're the kind of owner, it's not about like ruling with the iron fist, but you have the guts and the willingness to hold everyone accountable to a certain standard, and you will address the problems immediately as they come up, people get in line a little bit better about how they participate with your business. If you're the owner that doesn't do that, one person becomes 10 who pull that shit. We see that all the time in the yoga world. Go ahead, Terry.
I was also going to say is that sometimes when you do sit down and address it right away, oftentimes it can resolve itself, because some people just want to be heard. If you just hear them out, it's like they want to hear. It's like they just want to be heard. Like, particularly if you put a policy in places, it's not that you're going to change your mind, right? It's that they just want to be heard. And sometimes it can happen. We're definitely fallible. And so I know Bridget had talked about in her post, and I certainly did at my studios, made a decision, made a policy change, and then and I listened to them, and the things they said, the teachers, I hadn't thought of that. It was a very, because one of my teachers actually came to me very thoughtfully about it and laid out, and I listened to her, I heard what she was saying, and then I thought about it. I said, you know what? You're right. This isn't the best way to do this. And in Bridget's case, she listened to the teachers. We talked a lot about it. This was a couple months ago. And I did say to her, I said, and she said, yeah, they're right. And so, but anywho, oftentimes they want to be heard. And it's definitely, if you're like, nope, this is the way it is, that's fine. But if it's something that they say when they're talking to you and it makes rational sense, then potentially you just decide to do something else or change something else. But at the end of the day, at least if they're heard, they feel like, for want of a better term, they had a victory.
Yeah.
And for every
I
was to say, for every person that complains, there's probably like 10 or 12 that like other people who are thinking it, and only one person's, feels comfortable enough to say it.
I think that making sure your team feels heard, having open dialogue is clearly part of this. And I'm saying all of this stuff a little harsh because I get fired up I feel protective of the studio owners, because I just understand how weighing this is. It's intense, because the person who's causing the shit, often they leave the studio and go home and do whatever the hell they want, and it doesn't weigh on them the same way. So yeah, I think the other point here, and this is tricky, and this is why there's not like, see you, Vicky. Vicky's got her class to go to. I think that the other point here that sometimes comes up is when you're finding difficulty, it's important to hear what people are saying. It's important for them to feel heard. Sometimes you get the best ideas from your team because they see things that you don't. That's all true. But you want to be careful of doubting yourself too much, of having like too much influence from the team, because how this looks, and put your hand up if you've ever said this as a yoga studio owner, oh, I would do that, but like they're not going to do this, or it's too hard to get them together for that, or my team's not going to this. Like, we hear that from literally every owner. And that's a really silly thing because it's usually around stuff like, okay, like let's schedule a staff meeting, 90 minutes. We're going to do it 3 months in advance. They're like, nah, like people don't like to get together to whatever else. And it's like, what? Or someone's paying, you know, the $6,000 to bring Terry out to do a sales boot camp. And it's like for 3 days, we need the team, like we need the core players on the team to be available for 3-4 hour time blocks, and use the owner to be available a couple hours outside of that, and your manager a couple hours. And they're like, it's just so hard to schedule everyone to show up to this meeting. And you're like, I'm saying that comes up after we've already scheduled it. In one case, we'd scheduled like a year in advance, like, and we knew this was coming and the payment's already been made. And we're like, dude, you know, like, so anyways, this is a long-winded way of saying, be careful of too much influence from them too. There's a balance point. Sometimes as an owner and as an entrepreneur, and it took me a lot of years to have the confidence to be able to say this myself even, but when you're right, you're right. This idea is in entrepreneurship of like, well, everyone's right from their perspective or whatever. No, I don't think that's true. You have a different, it's a perspective question. You are the only one as the owner who holds the fullest perspective of everything. So sometimes people have great ideas, but you're just right. You're still right. It doesn't matter. You're like, that's great. And this is what we're doing. So not because you said so, but because you understand something that they don't. All right, let's keep going here.
Wait. Hashtag Terry's dad.
Ahead.
Hashtag Terry's dad. Because
Yes,
I
please.
said so. And that's the only reason you need. I mean, I know that you don't say that to kids these days, but I heard that a lot growing up because I grew up in the 60s and 70s. Because I said so, and that is the only reason you need. And sometimes that you do want to say that to people, because the other thing I would say about perspective is they don't have the whole picture. They only see it from one, but you like, they don't see the financial, they don't see this, they don't see this, they don't see all these other things that are going on as well. So I had another thought, but it died of loneliness. So if I can remember it,
it'll pop back in. All right, real quick, if you haven't seen the videos that we've been posting, there'll be some emails coming out about this. October the 6th is our virtual summit for building your event marketing calendar. The goal of this is that it's all day long. There are 2 major components. In the morning, we're going to be going through 4 different sessions talking about the best practices for marketing, AI in marketing, what's working in yoga studios for marketing, budgeting for marketing, all the sort of principles and understanding that you need to know. And then in the afternoon, we have a little lunch break. We're going to switch over to a workshop style. It's all virtual through Zoom, workshop style, where you're actually going to map out and build for all of 2024, what are you doing for events? What marketing events are you going to have? And how do they fit together? Here's the thing that if you haven't been to one of these before, we do these usually every year. If you haven't done this before, here's one of the major things that you'll take away from this right away. One single event can be great, but if you figure out how to get your events to play into each other, the rising tide rises all ships. There's a difference between a standalone event and having an event before that like preps people to be interested in the next event, which leads to the next one. So that's part of this mapping out. It's not as simple as saying like, these are some good ideas, let's just do these events. It's making sure you have the right balance of the number of them, the timing, how they play into each other, that they're covering all the different avatars that you have in your business and serving these different purposes. So it's extremely powerful. And I can say, without a doubt, every single studio owner in 2019, the 2021 virtual, and last year's 2022 virtual one, who have done this and mapped it out, irregardless of them doing everything that they put on there, saw an increase in the success of their events, their revenue, the happiness of the team, and their ability to launch on these things. How much depends on the studio. One studio doubled their business after the virtual one. So it like having that plan is endlessly powerful. And if you're coming to the in-person summit, the annual visionary retreat, this is something definitely to double down on, because this will plug into a lot of the other larger scale planning and business planning that we're going to be doing there. So I wanted to just plug that.
The other
three
thing I'm
different ticket levels. I'll put the link, or we'll put the link in the link down below here. But off the back of that, I think there's some marketing stuff that's been coming up. So sorry, Terry, you go first.
I was just going to say that in addition to what Josh just said, Vicki and I started working on this presentation yesterday, is what we're including this year that we didn't have last year because we had a shorter amount of time, is intelligent budgeting. So not only how to get the plan going, but then how do you budget for these things, right? And what's realistic for budget. So we're going to be talking about the budgeting part of it. We have all kinds. I just updated all the resources that we have. So templates and things that you can use as a guide. And as Josh mentioned, we have the 3 level of tickets. And if your team, you can invite your team. So for each team person, it's an additional $50, which is great. So they can do this from home because it's via Zoom. And I think it's a great way to get the team together.
Get your whole team synced up on what you're going to do for events as well.
Synced up. And what was really great was or you could do it together. We had a couple of people do that last year. Like Vicki was there with her manager. One of our other clients was there with her team. Because when we do the work, we're going to be working. You're going to put pen to paper, map things out, brainstorm. They were able to do it as a group together, which was really kind of cool. So it's not just us verbally vomiting on you. It's you actually getting shit done and having a plan by the end of the day. And it's like I said in my post the other day, how cool would it be to have that completely done before the holidays?
Yeah. Well, and also if you want to launch stuff in January, you need it done before the holidays.
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
one of the things, Terry, that, and this is part of why both of these summits are something that we do, but ideas are shit. Launching is everything. Yeah. So, that was the whole theme of our 2019 in-person summit. But the point here would be coming up with good ideas and inspiration and hearing what's worked in the past, what's working right now. That is going to be part of the conversation. But I think that it's important for everyone to take stock that like the energetic state that you are in, the brain waves that you need to be functioning, to be in your creative state of like, okay, this is this cool event and it could go like this and we could do that and here's all the details of it or whatever. That's one state. Then building all the stuff to get it prepared is a different state. It's a different headspace that you've got to get in, and then actually launching it is yet another one, right? So I think where studios struggle to get their ideas out of their head and into reality in their studio is they try to do all 3 of these things at the same time. We're trying to like come up with the concept, get all of the assets ready for it and launch it like at the same, like right now for next month. And then we're like, oh, I wonder why these aren't really working as well. Well, it's because you're working too close to the moment of now. When we're talking about events, whatever you're working on right now should be for 3 months in the future. So
or longer if it's a bigger event,
or longer. So
or a retreat, you need to be at least like 6 months. So we started talking about the bigger the ask, the bigger the ticket of the item, the
longer the lead time.
The longer the lead time. Yeah.
Right. And to that point, the other reason why this matters is fitting it all together. So like if you have this big thing that you need to start pushing 3 months in advance to make sure that you're going to get the event to really be as successful as you want. But then in that 3-month time frame, you also have this other event that you need to push. Then the question becomes, can you do that much communicating to your list? Like there's just too many things going on, too much to communicate. So the reason why getting creative, figuring out what you want to do, and then playing the puzzle piece game and mapping it all out for the year is because you also get to make sure that you have enough of an ebb and flow, an inhale and an exhale within the business for your clients. So you don't burn them out on the same thing, so that you're not over communicating with shit all the time that they just turn off because you're like, yeah, you're always doing stuff that's cool, but also like, I don't want to hear from you anymore. There's a balance point there, right? So it gives you a chance to make that happen. One of the things that's come up, Terry, that you've been talking about and that we will probably be talking about to some extent as well. No, we will, I'm sure it will come up. Be talking about this at the virtual event marketing calendar summit is landing pages.
Yes.
And it's an interesting conversation because it's one of those things that this always comes up as a subject matter to discuss with studio owners. And in the coaching crew, we talk about these things a lot. Yet at the same time, it's somehow not that big of a conversation like in the YC coming up. And it kind of surprises me because landing pages are like a really big deal. So I don't know, Terry, maybe pipe in, because I know you've been doing a lot of landing page work and conversation recently. Where's your head at with it?
Well, my head is just like, it's like the more I coach, the more I learn. It's like, oh shit, I wish I'd done this at my studio. Oh shit, it's like, if I were to do this today versus, almost 10 years ago, it would be a completely different situation. In fact, they're just about done with the strip mall at the end of my block. And there used to be an Anytime Fitness there.
Uh-oh, here we go.
I don't know, just put that out there. But so anyway, so I've been with our Leads to Member, we have a wonderful module. It's all about doing an audit of your website and your social media and just it's everything optimized. And what I'm finding in working with my clients is that it's like, oh gosh, it's not. What are some of the simple things? And landing pages has really come up. And I like to say when we go to the on-site, it's not like we're going in and saying your website's shit. It's like we're just smoothing and polishing. I like to say we're just smoothing and polishing and just doing this audit, optimizing it for lead conversion. And so what I'm noticing a lot is like you click on an intro offer and it's going to either the Mind Body widget or the Walla widget or whatever widget. And it's just like, buy this. And instead of having some clients have like these beautiful landing pages where it's like, why should they buy this? What are they getting? What am I going to become? What is my journey in this? That we talk about, what is the hero's journey? And then you have, you have pictures and it's like resonates like, wow, I want to be part of this. And then when they click to buy, boom, then they go to whatever widget to purchase, right? Yeah. So there's that, I'm finding there's that step missing to go to a landing page. And nowadays landing pages are pretty simple to create. And we have a beautiful template. It's like kind of how to lay it out to be an effective. And we have one, like we were talking a little bit about the events, right? So if you're just doing like a workshop, or if you're like a traditional intro offer upsell, it doesn't have to be, it could be a pretty short landing page. However, if you're selling like a YTT, a big ticket item, if you're selling like a retreat, then you want to have a little bit of a longer landing page, sort of, bringing it down to what's happening, what you're going to become, a little bit more explanation. If you're asking someone to plunk down $3,000 or $4,000, right? And so oftentimes it's just like, here's our retreat and then buy it. And it's like, well, what am I going to get from it? So that's been really eye-opening for me, is looking at landing pages or the lack thereof. And then one of the things we also look at is, okay, let's go look at all the links. Where are these links taking you on your, so then once you have the landing page set up, then every link that from your social media, from Google, whatever it is taking people to that landing page for that specific event. And that way it's singularly focused. There's nothing else there. It makes, okay, do I want this? Yes or no? I'm not going to get distracted by all this other stuff. So do you have landing pages? What does your landing page look like? Is it really trying to show what people are going to become? Is it all about the studio? Or is it about the journey that I'm going to come on when I come to your studio? Inquiring.
Yeah, what's actually said
on it. So, if you're interested, do a free coaching call. If you don't have a coach, do a free coaching call, and we can certainly help you with that. Sign up for one.
I want to back up to one of the points you made, Terry, that I think is really good. I was just seeing if I could pull up one of our templates, but it's not coming up for me that easily.
I can grab one.
Yeah, I mean, either way, but the purpose of the landing page is looking at it like a conversation. If I see it doesn't, like, let's use an email would be an example. You send me an email, I open the email, I read the email, and the purpose of the email is for me to buy whatever, your retreat. Let's use that example because we already started it. So then you say, click here to buy the retreat, but that email is limited in how much information's in there. So I'm going to have more questions. I'm going to have more information that I want to know. If I click that and it just takes me to a checkout page, like there's like just nothing, like just the Mind Body checkout, and it just says retreat on these days, like $500 deposit. One, the fact that I've gone that's somewhere that's not your website, it's highly likely that you can't track that with cookies or pixels. So you're not going to be able to remarket to me, which we know that, you know, most people, yeah, maybe in a second, Terry. Most people aren't going to purchase, especially a bigger ticket thing, but even your membership, the first time they look at it. It's not going to be one email, they look at it, click buy. That's an unlikely scenario. It's more likely they're going to have to come back a few times. So remarketing becomes a huge part of this. So if you just send them straight to MindBody, for example, you can't track that, hard to remarket to them. You don't even know what's going on. On the other hand, if you send them to a landing page that you own, well, now you can do that. So it changes the whole funnel's effectiveness. The other detail here is I'm going to have questions. I have other thoughts. And also think about for yourself buying something online. It's not uncommon, Terry, and you know, I know you and I have discussed this too, that like, I like the idea of this thing. I click, I get there, I'm at the buy moment, and that's when I bounce. Like I get all the way to that place, and that's when I'm like, I don't know. And I bounce out of it. That's a normal human thing to do. So if on that page, there's no other video, photo, information, text writing that's solidifying my desire to make the purchase, to keep telling me about like the aspirational identity, who I become after I buy it, what the benefits are, the features, answering my questions. If that doesn't happen, then it's a lot of people just aren't going to make it through. So the landing page is like a continuation of the conversation. And the other detail here is we use the idea of the retreat being a big ticket item. You're going to ask someone for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 to go on a retreat with you. Okay. But like, that means there's a lot of depth in conversation that has to happen. So one click through equals a $5,000 sale. Your landing page better be friggin' good. Like it's worth putting the time and effort in when you look at it that way. Conversely, think about a landing page for just your regular membership. Yeah, it might only be $100 sale, but you're going to send over the next 1, 2, 3 years, because you'll tweak your page a bit. But like, this is a page that you're going to send hundreds, if not thousands of people to. So it makes sense to put the effort into making it good, and having all the information on there be really powerful. Let's show Terry. We just have a
Do you want the
quick
short or the
example
long?
one.
I've got the long one. Do you want the short or the long?
Just do the short if you've got it.
I've got it. Hold on, I just switched.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a quick idea of a landing page. We'll walk through really quickly. It's just to give you a starting point, but here's the things that matter. If you notice on the top, there is no other navigation. This is actually a squeeze page. It means if I land on this page, the only things I can do is click the back button, close the window, or purchase. Those are the only options that I have. So there's no distraction of anything else, you know. And then let's just scroll down. You know, we got a headline, there's some social proof, like a testimonial. We have some benefit bullets there and a call to action at the bottom, and then an FAQ section. So pretty self-explanatory. The one thing that I think, here's your big tip of the day. That's great, Terry, thanks. The one like big tip of the day is putting an FAQ. Like all those things matter on there, but here's the idea. A frequently asked questions section at the bottom of a landing page for a purchase is not only to just answer some hypothetical questions. It's to allow you to overcome the potential objections that someone would have to making the purchase by formulating them into a question. That's the purpose of your FAQ. So there might be some like brass tacks, practical questions. When is it? Is there a payment plan? Whatever else that you can add in there. But the real purpose of an FAQ is so that you can think about, okay, I'm asking Terry to buy this retreat. What would a reason be for Terry to not buy this retreat? What would an objection be? What would a hurdle be? Well, maybe she doesn't feel like she wants to go to the retreat alone. Maybe she thinks that the retreat has other hidden costs like the food. Maybe the price is okay, but she doesn't want to pay the price all in one go. Maybe she's a new yoga practitioner and is worried that she won't be good at do good at the yoga classes or whatever. Cool. So then like formulate those into questions and then answer them and overcome those objections. That's the point of the FAQ. Same thing, your membership. Oh, I'm going to be locked in for too long. Oh, in this one time in this other membership, they had a hidden fee. There's a startup fee. It's going to be super hard for me to cancel. I'm going to have to jump through all these hoops. These are all things that are going on in your mind making a purchase. Your FAQ can just get rid of all those. Reassure someone they can do
I have a good one pulled up for direct to membership.
Oh, sure. Let's take a look.
This is from our client, Shannon, she's out in Western Mass, who's just been crushing it. So this is her landing page for her. She's on direct to membership. You know, beautiful picture with smiling people, different bodies.
And this picture is also like inviting you in. Right.
Yeah.
You're trying to sell a membership. This picture is saying like, hey, here's us, join our community. We're happy here. You're welcome. You're like, yeah.
And then about them, you know, again, fun pictures. Now's your chance that what they're about. Then here's what it is, sign up, what's included, tons of perks, some testimonials. And then down here, the FAQs. Do I have to be, you know, and here's one like, why do you use infrared heat? Why are all your, you know, so this is, I think, a really good example of a landing page for a direct member, or even just a basic. If this was a standard intro offer, this is still, you know, it's a really good.
This is a great example. And again, there's nothing else to do there. Like that page is the entire conversation of the page is devoted to this one outcome, because people don't want to go to your website and then have to read all of it and interpret where to go and what to click. And they don't want to have decision fatigue from 150 different places and options to go. Like, no, I want it to be simple.
Yeah.
Landing pages. We'll be talking about that in the marketing events calendar. If you're doing an event, it would be one of the considerations. What we have is a event marketing checklist that you get if you participate as well. And one of the things on there is, do you have a landing page? Do you need a landing page for this? Some things maybe you don't, make it simple, but very often bigger ticket item, something in front, you want to have a landing page for it. So having some strategy, having a template for that, being able to produce one quick and easy, very powerful. All right. I think that's it for today.
I think that's it. We can wax poetic for the rest of the day between the two of us. We have no problem.
Wax poetic. I like it. Yeah. We could jaw on.
We could jaw on. We could, yes.
We could jaw on.
So
I could go all day.
Sign up for the marketing online virtual summit. It's going to be awesome. What else? We do still have one or two spots left for the one spot left for the summit.
In-person summit in November has one bed
spot left.
Yeah.
So if you're on the fence, you know, talk about having a rock solid year. I can tell you every single one of my clients that went to that last year is just crushing it this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just, and it's because they had their plan going into the year. So we got the marketing summit. If you don't have a coach, sign up for a free coaching call. If all of this is like, oh my gosh, where do I start? Just start by booking a free coaching call.
We'll help point you in the right direction.
We'll help point you in the right direction. So we are here to help you grow because we love you.
Go do some yoga. Have a great weekend. And we'll talk to you guys soon. All right.